Welcome to Zoe Stories. My crush said I'd look cute. Now she won't let me stop. The first time I noticed my crush, Lily, I felt my chest tighten in a way I couldn't quite explain. She had this effortless charm, a mix of warmth and playful confidence that seemed to draw everyone toward her. I was just a regular guy, or at least I thought I was, but something about her made me hyper-aware of every little detail about myself. From the way I styled my hair to the clothes I chose, I wanted to be noticed, to be someone she'd find appealing. But it wasn't just admiration, it was something deeper, a pull that I didn't fully understand until much later. I'm Alex, an ordinary college student with an interest in fashion and self-expression that I kept mostly to myself. I wasn't what anyone would call a cross-dresser in public. It was more a private curiosity, a playful way to experiment with looks in the safety of my room. I'd try on different outfits, style my hair, maybe even dabble in light makeup just to see how it felt. It wasn't about hiding who I was. It was about exploring a side of myself that rarely saw the light of day. But deep down, I wondered what it would be like to be admired for that side, to have someone see me in a completely different light. That day started like any other. I was scrolling through my phone, half distracted by class notes and half dreaming about Lily, when she suddenly appeared by my side. She had that mischievous smile, the one that made your stomach flip without warning. "Alex," she said, tilting her head, "you'd look really cute in that dress I bought for my cousin's party." My heart nearly stopped. I wasn't wearing anything fancy, nothing remotely girly, yet the suggestion alone sent a thrill through me. The idea had been harmless at first, just a joke between friends. But Lily's eyes lingered on me with an intensity one hadn't felt before. "I mean it," she added softly, leaning closer. "You'd pull it off, maybe even better than anyone else." I swallowed hard, feeling a mixture of embarrassment, excitement, and curiosity all at once. Part of me wanted to laugh it off, to brush it off as just another playful comment. But another part, the part I'd kept hidden, buzzed with possibility. I found myself thinking about her words for days afterward. Every time I walked past a mirror, I imagined how it would feel, how it would look, and most importantly, how she would react. Her comment wasn't just flattering. It was a dare, a challenge wrapped in admiration. And deep inside, I realized I wanted to accept it. One evening, when the dorm was quiet and the hallway lights cast soft shadows, I found myself digging through Lily's cousin's gift stash. A simple dress caught my eye, a pastel pink number that was both elegant and playful. Holding it in my hands, I could feel my pulse quicken. The fabric was soft against my fingers, and I could almost imagine myself in front of the mirror, seeing a version of me that no one else had witnessed. The first time I put it on, I was shocked by the sensation. The dress hugged my body in ways my everyday clothes never did, accentuating curves I didn't think I had. The thrill was immediate, intoxicating even, as if the simple act of dressing differently had awakened something inside me. I twirled in front of the mirror, half laughing, half gasping, and for the first time, I saw someone else looking back, someone playful, confident, and daring. It wasn't just about clothes. I experimented with subtle makeup, learning how to highlight features I never thought could stand out. Eyeliner, a touch of blush, lip gloss. Each layer brought me closer to the person I had imagined when Lily first spoke those words. There was a rush in seeing the reflection, a thrill that made my pulse race and my thoughts scatter. For the first time, I understood what it felt like to truly transform, to step into someone else's skin and feel entirely new yet undeniably myself. The moment of reckoning came sooner than I expected. Lily texted me that she wanted to see the result in person. My stomach twisted in anticipation and fear. What if I couldn't live up to her expectations? What if seeing me like this changed the way she looked at me, and not in the way I hoped? But the thrill was irresistible. I chose my outfit carefully, styled my hair just the way I'd practiced, and took a deep breath before stepping outside my room. Her eyes widened the instant she saw me. "Alex, wow," she breathed, the tone somewhere between shock and delight. I could feel my cheeks flush, but there was no hiding the pride, the exhilaration of her approval. She smiled, a mischievous glint lighting up her eyes. "I knew you'd look amazing." Now don't take it off. That simple sentence, innocuous on the surface, carried the weight of a command, a challenge, and an unspoken invitation. From that moment, everything shifted. What had started as playful experimentation now became a daily, suspenseful ritual. Each time I dressed up, each time I saw her reaction, the stakes grew higher. I couldn't stop, not because I wanted to be trapped in a persona, but because the thrill, the emotional rush, and the connection to Lily had become intoxicating. The excitement was paired with an undercurrent of fear. What would people think if they knew? Could I maintain this double life without it unraveling? And so began the journey. A week of transformation, secret experiments, stolen glances, and whispered approvals. Each moment built on the last, layering suspense, emotional intensity, and the tantalizing possibility that the thrill could end at any second. My private world had collided with desire, admiration, and vulnerability, setting the stage for an experience I could never have anticipated. As I looked at my reflection that first night, still in the pastel pink dress, I realized that this was only the beginning. The thrill of transformation, the magnetic pull of Lily's gaze, and the suspense of how far this could go were just the opening chapter. My crush had said I'd look cute, but she had no idea how much power her words would hold, or how deeply I would fall into this world she had opened for me. The week ahead promised suspense, emotional tension, and transformation in ways I couldn't yet predict. And though I felt both exhilarated and terrified, there was no turning back. Once Lily had seen me like this, once I had embraced this new version of myself, I knew my life had changed forever. The morning sun poured through my bedroom window, illuminating the chaos of my desk. Books stacked haphazardly, a forgotten makeup palette half open, and a small collection of dresses tucked in the corner. I blinked at the mess, feeling a strange mixture of excitement and dread. Today was different. Today, I was stepping fully into the dare that had started as a joke, but quickly became something far more thrilling and terrifying. It had all started last week. I was sitting with my usual group of friends during lunch, trying to ignore the stares and whispers of the other students. Our school was alive with gossip, and anyone who dared to stand out or dress differently became instant fodder for discussion. I'd always been careful, hiding my experiments with makeup and fashion, keeping that part of myself private. But then came the dare. Jessica, the self-proclaimed queen of social dynamics, had smirked across the cafeteria table. "I bet you'd look ridiculously cute in my old cheer outfit," she said, voice dripping with challenge. "I dare you to wear it for a whole week. I swear, everyone would freak." I froze. Part of me wanted to laugh it off, to reject the idea entirely. But another part, one that had been simmering quietly for months, felt a spark of excitement. The thought of transforming, of stepping into a persona that was glamorous and commanding, was intoxicating. It wasn't just a dare anymore. It was an opportunity to explore a side of myself I had only dared to dream about. That night, I carefully unpacked the outfit Jessica had lent me. The fabric was soft, almost delicate, hugging curves in all the right places. My fingers trembled as I held it against myself in the mirror, imagining the transformation that awaited me. My heart raced as I considered the reactions of my classmates. Would they laugh? Stare? Or, perhaps more thrillingly, admire the confidence I had never dared to show? The first day of the dare arrived, and I felt a whirlwind of emotions as I dressed in Jessica's outfit. My reflection stared back at me, someone familiar yet entirely new. The makeup accentuated my features, the hair carefully styled to frame my face, and the outfit clung in a way that was both empowering and terrifying. Every step towards school felt like walking a tightrope, balancing the thrill of transformation with the fear of discovery. Walking through the hallways, I could feel eyes on me. Whispers followed me. Laughter bubbled at the edges, and yet, surprisingly, I also sensed admiration. Some girls tilted their heads, curious, envious, or both. Some boys looked away, unsure how to react. The attention was intoxicating, yet it carried a weight. I had stepped into a world where every glance could either elevate me or expose me, and I was acutely aware of the stakes. By the end of the first day, I realized this dare was no longer about a simple outfit. It was about identity, about testing boundaries, and exploring the thrilling mix of power and vulnerability. I couldn't help but smile when I caught Jessica smirking from across the cafeteria, clearly pleased with the chaos she had instigated. My life had changed in a single day, and the weeks ahead promised challenges I wasn't sure I was fully prepared for, but I couldn't wait to face them. The second day of the dare was even more intense. I woke up to the sound of my alarm buzzing relentlessly, my mind already racing with anticipation and anxiety. The memory of yesterday's reactions, the whispered comments, the envious stares, the subtle admiration, kept replaying in my head. I knew I couldn't back down now. The dare had escalated into something far more powerful than I had anticipated. I stood in front of my mirror, examining myself with a mix of awe and apprehension. The outfit I had chosen for today was bolder, a pastel pink skirt that swirled around my thighs and a fitted top that highlighted my shoulders. I spent extra time on makeup, perfecting the subtle contouring and a soft shimmer that made my eyes pop. Each brushstroke felt like armor, a layer of confidence I had never worn before. As I walked to school, every step was a calculated performance. I could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes, both curious and judgmental, tracking my movements. The hallways seemed narrower today, the chatter louder, and every glance from classmates a potential moment of exposure or admiration. My heart raced, my palms sweated, yet beneath the fear was an undeniable thrill. I was stepping into a persona that demanded attention, and for the first time, I felt its intoxicating power. In class, I noticed subtle shifts in behavior. Some students whispered behind their hands, clearly intrigued by the transformation. Others, who had never paid attention to me before, now seemed to hang on my every gesture. Even the teachers seemed to notice, though they made no comment. It was a strange mix of vulnerability and exhilaration, knowing that my secret was safe for now, but that each day I risked being discovered. Lunchtime brought the first real challenge. Jessica approached, her grin mischievous and eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Looking good," she said, her tone casual but sharp. "You're really owning this." Her approval was a boost, but it also carried an unspoken expectation. I realized that the dare had evolved. It wasn't just about wearing the outfit anymore. It was about embodying the persona fully, commanding attention, and surviving scrutiny with grace. That afternoon, I faced an unexpected twist. Madison, a notoriously sharp and critical classmate, decided to corner me near the lockers. "You're really different," she said, tilting her head as if inspecting me. My pulse quickened. One wrong word, one awkward gesture, could shatter the illusion I had built. I forced a smile, keeping my voice steady. "Just trying something new?" I replied, careful not to reveal too much. Madison's eyes lingered, her expression unreadable, and I felt the suspense coil tighter around me. The rest of the day was a delicate dance of social interactions, each one a test of my poise and composure. I navigated conversations with friends, classmates, and even teachers, always aware that my secret persona was under scrutiny. The thrill of attention was addictive, but so was the fear of being discovered. I had crossed a line into a world where every glance, every word, and every gesture carried the potential for both triumph and disaster. By the time I returned home, I was exhausted yet exhilarated. The dare had already transformed my routine, my confidence, and my sense of identity. I stared at myself in the mirror one last time, reflecting on the journey so far. The thrill of the dare was undeniable, but I knew that the challenges ahead would be even greater. This was only the beginning, and I was both terrified and eager to see how far I could go. By the third day of the dare, the thrill of transformation had begun to intertwine with a deeper, more complex tension. I had started to notice how different people's reactions affected me, how a compliment could send a rush of confidence through my body, while a doubtful glance made my stomach twist into knots. Each morning, as I selected my outfit and applied my makeup, I felt like an actor preparing for a high-stakes performance. But unlike any stage I had been on before, The audience here was unpredictable, and the consequences of a misstep were terrifyingly real. I chose a soft blue dress that hugged my waist and flared slightly at the skirt. It was simple yet elegant, with delicate straps that showcased my shoulders. I paired it with low heels that added just enough height to make me feel poised and graceful. As I studied my reflection, I could see how much this persona had begun to influence the way I carried myself. I wasn't just wearing the clothes, I was becoming someone else, someone bold, magnetic, and undeniably visible. Walking to school, the familiar sensation of being watched returned, sharper than ever. The hallways were filled with students, all moving with the frenetic energy of a high school morning, yet my attention was drawn to the way they glanced at me, whispered to each other, or tried to steal a discreet look. I could feel the suspense building with every step. I was walking a delicate line between visibility and exposure, and the thrill was intoxicating. In class, subtle dynamics began to shift. Friends who had previously ignored me now sought my attention, asking questions about my outfit or commenting on my appearance. I realized that the dare had given me a new form of social power, one that was thrilling but also unnerving. It wasn't just about wearing the clothes, it was about commanding the room, maintaining composure under scrutiny, and managing the unpredictable reactions of others. Lunchtime brought a new challenge. Jessica had organized a small fashion circle, a casual gathering of students who wanted to see how I carried myself. I felt a wave of panic as I approached the group, knowing that every movement, every smile, and every word would be analyzed. But as I stepped into the circle, something unexpected happened. The energy shifted. Laughter, compliments, and playful teasing filled the air, and for the first time, I felt a genuine sense of belonging. The dare had become more than a test. It had become an opportunity to explore a side of myself I had kept hidden for too long. Yet the tension remained. Madison, ever sharp and observant, was there too, her eyes flicking over me with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. I could feel the suspense coil tighter around me as she approached. "You're really committed to this," she said, a hint of admiration in her tone. I forced a smile, keeping my voice steady. "I guess I'm trying something new," I replied, careful not to reveal the depth of my transformation or my feelings. Her eyes lingered, and I could sense that she was measuring me, trying to understand the secret behind the persona. As the day progressed, I became acutely aware of the emotional complexity of the situation. I was no longer just playing a game. I was navigating a web of social dynamics, personal insecurities, and the thrill of transformation. Every interaction carried weight. Every glance held meaning, and every step was both empowering and terrifying. The dare had evolved into something far more intricate than I had anticipated, a test of courage, poise, and the ability to maintain a carefully crafted persona under constant scrutiny. By the time I returned home, I was emotionally exhausted but exhilarated. The dare had pushed me to new heights of confidence and vulnerability. I stared at myself in the mirror, examining the reflection of someone who is no longer just playing a role, but embracing a part of myself that had been hidden away. I realized that the next days would bring even greater challenges, higher stakes, and opportunities to test the limits of this transformation. And despite the fear, I couldn't wait to see how far I could go. The fourth day arrived with a weight I hadn't fully anticipated. The dare had become more than just wearing outfits. It had transformed into a complex game of perception, judgment, and personal exploration. As I stood in front of the mirror, carefully selecting my ensemble, I felt a strange mixture of exhilaration and dread. Today's outfit was daring, a sleek, emerald green dress with a plunging neckline and a fitted silhouette that accentuated every curve. I paired it with strappy heels and added a bold lipstick, confident that this look would draw attention, but also aware that it could make me vulnerable. As I walked to school, my heart pounded with every step. The hallways felt narrower, the chatter louder, and every glance from classmates seemed magnified. I noticed how people's reactions had evolved over the past few days. Some students stared openly, some whispered, and some simply tried to ignore me, as if pretending I didn't exist. The thrill of attention was addictive, but so was the tension. Each look felt like a test, a question silently asking whether I belonged in this new persona or whether I would falter under the pressure. By the second period, the social dynamics had shifted dramatically. Friends who had initially supported me now watched with curiosity tinged with awe. Even teachers seemed to notice subtle changes in my demeanor. I realized that the dare had begun to affect not just my personal identity, but my social standing. I was becoming someone people noticed, someone they couldn't ignore, and the responsibility of maintaining that image weighed heavily on me. Lunchtime brought a particularly tense moment. Jessica, ever the orchestrator, had gathered a small group of students to observe my transformation. The circle formed around me, their eyes appraising, their whispers punctuating the air. My pulse quickened as I stepped into the center, aware that every movement, every gesture, and every smile would be dissected. I reminded myself to breathe, to maintain composure, and to embrace the persona fully. Each step became a dance, each word a carefully measured note in a symphony of social tension. But the suspense didn't end there. Madison, still sharp and ever observant, approached once again. "You're really committing to this," she said, her tone a mix of curiosity and challenge. I smiled, careful to hide the storm of emotions inside. "I guess I just wanted to try something different," I replied, keeping my voice steady, masking the vulnerability that threatened to surface. Her eyes lingered, analyzing, probing, and I realized that the stakes had escalated beyond a simple dare. My reputation, my social image, and my sense of self were all entwined in this high-stakes experiment. The afternoon brought unexpected obstacles. A group of students decided to test my composure, making subtle, teasing comments and watching my reactions. I had to navigate the delicate balance between confidence and vulnerability, ensuring that my persona remained intact while deflecting ridicule. The thrill of performance was exhilarating, yet the emotional strain was undeniable. Each interaction carried weight, and the suspense of potential exposure hung like a storm cloud over every conversation. By the end of the day, I felt both exhausted and exhilarated. The dare had pushed me to confront fears I hadn't known existed, to explore a persona that was simultaneously empowering and fragile. I looked at myself in the mirror that evening, tracing the outline of the dress and the reflection of the person I had become. The transformation was more than physical, it was emotional, social, and psychological. And I knew that the final day of the dare would bring the ultimate test of courage, poise, and self-discovery. The fifth day of the dare felt heavier than any before. By now, I was acutely aware that the dare had transformed into something far larger than a simple challenge. It was a full-blown journey into a persona I had never dared to fully explore. I awoke with a knot in my stomach, part excitement and part anxiety, knowing that today would test every ounce of composure, courage, and confidence I had built over the past 4 days. I stood before my mirror, carefully selecting today's outfit, a fitted black dress that ended just above the knee, paired with elegant heels that added a subtle sway to my steps. My makeup was bolder than ever, smoky eyes, highlighted cheekbones, and a deep berry lipstick that made my reflection almost unrecognizable. I stared at myself, feeling a shiver of both fear and thrill. Who was this person staring back at me? Was she me, or a version of me I had never dared to be? As I walked through the school gates, the hallways felt electric. Every glance, every whisper, every hushed conversation seemed amplified. The attention I had gradually earned over the past days now carried a sharp edge of expectation. Friends, rivals, and strangers alike watched closely, curious about how far I would take this dare. The suspense coiled around me with every step, and I realized that I was walking on a tightrope. One misstep could shatter the persona I had so carefully constructed. In class, subtle power dynamics emerged. Students who had ignored me before now seemed drawn to me, their conversations punctuated with curiosity and admiration. Some whispered about my confidence, others about my daring outfit choices, but all attention was centered on me. It was intoxicating, yet also terrifying. I was no longer just participating in a dare. I was performing, and the performance had become inseparable from my identity. During lunch, Jessica once again orchestrated a gathering. This time, it felt like a test of endurance, a challenge to maintain poise under scrutiny. I moved through the crowd with careful precision, aware of every eye following me, every judgment suspended in the air. Madison, ever observant, approached once more. "You've really transformed," she said, her voice tinged with both curiosity and something I couldn't quite place, respect, perhaps, or subtle challenge. I smiled, careful to mask the whirlwind of emotions inside me. "Thanks," I replied, keeping my voice steady, hiding the vulnerability that bubbled beneath the surface. The suspense heightened further when an unexpected visitor appeared in the cafeteria, one of the school administrators, walking slowly with a clipboard and a keen, observant gaze. My heart thumped wildly. One wrong move, one flicker of discomfort, and my carefully constructed persona could crumble. I felt the heat of the moment pressing against my skin, each breath measured, each movement deliberate. The stakes had never felt higher. By the end of the day, I returned home emotionally drained but exhilarated. The dare had forced me to confront fears I hadn't known existed, to navigate complex social hierarchies, and to embrace a persona that was both empowering and fragile. As I stood before my mirror, examining the reflection of the girl I had become, I realized something profound. The dare was no longer about proving something to others. It was about discovering a side of myself I had long kept hidden. And yet, a sense of suspense lingered. The final day loomed ahead, promising the ultimate test. Would I maintain my composure under even greater scrutiny? Could I continue to navigate the high-stakes social dynamics without faltering? The questions hung in the air, unresolved, leaving a knot of anticipation in my chest. The dare had transformed me in ways I could not have imagined, and the climax of this journey was fast approaching. One final test that would push me to the edge of fear, excitement, and self-discovery. The final day of the dare had arrived, and the tension was almost unbearable. I woke up with my heart pounding, the memory of the past 5 days running through my mind. Each glance, each whisper, each challenge had led to this moment. Today, the stakes were higher than ever, and I knew there was no turning back. The persona I had embraced, the confident, magnetic, daring girl, had become more than just a dare. It had become a part of me, a reflection of desires and fears I had long kept hidden. I carefully selected my outfit for the day, a shimmering silver dress that hugged my body in all the right places. It was bold, daring, and impossible to ignore. I paired it with strappy heels and meticulously applied makeup that highlighted my eyes and lips, giving me a look both striking and delicate. Every brushstroke, every choice of accessory, felt like a declaration. I was stepping fully into this persona, ready to face whatever came my way. As I walked to school, I could feel the weight of anticipation pressing down on me. The hallways were crowded, filled with the chatter of students, but every sound seemed amplified. Every glance focused on me. I sensed their curiosity, their judgment, and their admiration, all swirling together into an almost tangible pressure. My palms were sweaty, but there was a thrill beneath the fear, a recognition that I had grown into this persona over the past week, and now I would face its ultimate test. During first period, subtle challenges began to emerge. Students whispered, glanced, and occasionally nudged each other, clearly reacting to my appearance. The whispers weren't cruel. They were loaded with intrigue and fascination. I moved through the day carefully, aware of every gesture, every word, and every interaction. Each moment felt like walking on a tightrope. One misstep, one falter, could unravel the carefully constructed persona I had nurtured over days. By lunchtime, the suspense had escalated. Jessica, my close ally in this dare, had orchestrated a small gathering of classmates, creating a kind of informal stage where my persona would be observed and analyzed. I entered the circle, my confidence bolstered by the weeks of practice and the subtle mastery I had gained in controlling my image. But the weight of expectation was heavier than ever. Every smile, every laugh, and every glance carried immense significance. I could feel the pressure to maintain the persona, to be flawless, and to navigate the unpredictable reactions of everyone around me. And then came the twist. Madison, who had been quietly observing my transformation all week, suddenly spoke. "You've done well," she said, her tone a mix of admiration and challenge. Her eyes drilled into me, assessing, questioning, almost daring me to falter. I felt my heartbeat spike, unsure whether her words were meant as encouragement or a subtle warning that my secret was still under scrutiny. My mind raced, weighing every possible reaction, every way to maintain composure. The first part of the climax set the stage. The final day, heightened tension, subtle challenges from peers, and the pressure of maintaining a perfected persona. My internal struggle was at its peak, balancing fear, excitement, and the thrill of transformation. I had to navigate social dynamics, personal vulnerability, and the thrill of being fully visible, all while knowing that the ultimate test of courage and self-discovery was looming ahead. By mid-morning, the suspense had reached an almost unbearable level. The hallways felt alive with eyes following my every step. Whispers and stifled giggles trailed behind me like shadows, amplifying the thrill and tension of the day. Each interaction felt like a test, and I knew I could not falter. Every glance from a classmate, every subtle smirk, challenged my carefully crafted persona, forcing me to walk the delicate line between confidence and exposure. During second period, my heart nearly skipped a beat when Madison approached me again. "You really are committed," she murmured under her breath, just loud enough for me to hear. Her tone was playful yet probing, like she was teasing out some secret she suspected but couldn't quite confirm. I smiled politely, keeping my composure, but inside, a storm of anxiety and exhilaration raged. I realized that her perception mattered more than I wanted to admit, and I felt the tension of being truly seen in this new light. Lunchtime brought the ultimate test. Jessica had gathered a larger group of students, creating what felt like a high-stakes social arena. Everyone's attention was on me, and I knew that my every action would be analyzed. My pulse raced and my palms felt clammy, but I forced myself to stand tall and carry the persona I had been cultivating all week. Each movement was deliberate, a subtle tilt of the head, a gentle sway of my hips, a practiced smile. The challenge was not just to appear confident, but to truly embody this version of myself while maintaining control over my racing emotions. The tension escalated when a surprise visitor arrived. The school principal, who had heard rumors about the dare and the unusual attention it had generated. My stomach dropped as she scanned the room, her eyes sharp and analytical. For a moment, I feared that my secret and my persona might be judged or even criticized. But I had no choice. I had to continue, to perform, to maintain the delicate balance between confidence and fear. The stakes were higher than ever, and every gesture mattered. Amidst this chaos, I found a brief moment of clarity in the mirror of the cafeteria window. I caught sight of my reflection, the shimmering dress, the poised posture, the carefully applied makeup. In that instant, I realized that the persona I had created had taken on a life of its own. I wasn't just wearing a dress, I was inhabiting a new version of myself, one that was bold, captivating, and undeniably visible. The thrill of transformation surged through me, mingling with the fear of being discovered, creating an intoxicating tension that pushed me to my emotional and social limits. By the end of the lunch period, I felt the weight of the day pressing down on me. The suspense, the social pressure, and the thrill of being fully visible had reached a fever pitch. I knew that the next hours would bring even greater challenges, tests of composure, and opportunities for exposure that could either solidify my persona or shatter it entirely. The stakes had never been higher, and the line between fear and exhilaration had never been thinner. The tension of the day continued to escalate as third period began, and it felt as though the air itself had thickened around me. Every glance from a classmate felt like a magnifying lens on my actions. The confidence I had built over the past week was now being tested like never before, and even the smallest misstep could unravel the persona I had so carefully cultivated. I could feel my heart racing beneath the fabric of my dress, my every movement deliberate and precise, each step a calculated dance to maintain composure. During a group activity in class, the challenge intensified. I was paired with classmates who were aware of the dare and seemed determined to test my ability to sustain the persona under scrutiny. Every word I spoke, every gesture I made, was observed with sharp attention. I had to navigate their curiosity and subtle jabs while maintaining a demeanor of effortless elegance. The pressure was immense, but the thrill of successfully managing it was addictive. Each interaction was a test of poise, each glance a reminder of how far I had come and how precarious the situation remained. Suddenly, an unexpected twist raised the stakes even higher. Madison leaned toward me, her voice just loud enough for me to hear. "I think you're enjoying this a little too much." Her words, laced with both teasing and a hint of challenge, struck a chord deep inside me. Was she trying to expose my enjoyment, my excitement in this new identity? My pulse quickened, and I forced myself to maintain a neutral expression. Inside, however, a storm of emotions raged: exhilaration, fear, and an intoxicating sense of liberation all entwined in a single, overwhelming wave. The drama intensified when the fire alarm unexpectedly went off, causing chaos and disruption. Students spilled into the hallways, their attention momentarily diverted from me, but the disruption only heightened the suspense. I moved carefully, aware that any stumble could draw unwanted attention. The alarms, the shouting, the sudden movements, it was all a test of balance and composure under pressure. Even amidst chaos, I had to maintain the persona, to project the confidence and poise that had become inseparable from my identity over the past week. In a quiet corridor, I caught my reflection in a window and froze. The girl staring back was unrecognizable to the boy I had been a week ago. My makeup was flawless, my dress shimmering under the fluorescent lights, and my posture radiated confidence. I realized that the dare had evolved beyond a simple challenge. It had become a journey of self-discovery and transformation. But with that realization came the weight of responsibility. The persona I had embraced was fragile, balanced delicately between social approval and the risk of exposure. The suspense of the day, the thrill of the dare, and the fear of discovery intertwined into an almost tangible tension, pushing me toward the ultimate confrontation that awaited in the final hours. The tension reached its peak in the fourth period, and every moment felt like walking a razor's edge. Word had spread quickly through the school about the dare, and the hallways buzzed with anticipation. Classmates stared openly, whispers trailing behind me like invisible threads. Every glance carried weight, every smirk felt like a subtle judgment. I realized that today was no longer just about the dare. It had transformed into a test of identity, courage, and control over the persona I had crafted. During a history presentation, my group was called to the front. As I stepped forward, I felt every eye in the room fix on me, each one assessing, judging, and silently questioning. My hands trembled slightly as I held my notes, but I forced myself to maintain an air of composure. The confidence I had painstakingly built over the past week now became a shield, hiding the pounding of my heart and the surge of adrenaline coursing through me. Every word I spoke, every gesture I made, was deliberate. I had to maintain the persona flawlessly. One misstep could undo everything. The suspense escalated when Jessica, ever the provocateur, deliberately asked a question designed to put me on the spot. "So, how does it feel to suddenly be the center of attention?" she asked, her smile teasing, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. The classroom went silent, all eyes on me. I felt my pulse spike, my face warming under the scrutiny. But I held my ground, responding with a measured smile and a confident answer, carefully controlling my tone and expression. The thrill of successfully navigating the moment sent a shiver down my spine. I realized just how deeply I had immersed myself in this new persona and how much power and vulnerability it carried. The stakes escalated further when Madison whispered something unexpected as we exited the classroom. "Don't think the principal won't notice how far you've taken this," she murmured. My stomach twisted, and panic surged momentarily. The thought that authority might intervene, that my secret and daring persona could be exposed, sent my mind racing. Every step I took down the hallway was measured, careful, as I sought to maintain control while hiding the storm of fear and exhilaration within me. By the end of the period, I found a quiet corner near the library, catching my reflection in the glass. The girl staring back was poised, confident, and daring, yet beneath that exterior, I felt a torrent of emotions: fear, excitement, vulnerability, and a strange sense of liberation. I realized that the dare had pushed me far beyond simple embarrassment or curiosity. It had transformed me, forcing me to confront and embrace parts of myself I had never dared to explore. But the day was not over. The ultimate test awaited, the final confrontation, the decisive moment that would determine whether I could fully embrace this new identity or be forced back into the shadows of my former self. The final period of the day had arrived, and the tension was unbearable. Every glance, every whisper, every passing stare seemed magnified 100-fold. I could feel the culmination of the week's transformation pressing down on me like a living weight. The dare, once playful, had evolved into something far more complex, a confrontation between my old self and the bold, daring persona I had become. My heartbeat thundered in my chest, each beat a reminder of the high stakes that hung in the balance. The final challenge came unexpectedly. Jessica had arranged for a school assembly, cleverly orchestrated, so that I would have to step onto the stage in front of hundreds of students. The thought alone made my stomach churn, but there was no way to avoid it. I had come too far, and backing down now would mean losing not just the dare, but the newfound confidence that had grown inside me over the past week. My palms were clammy, but I straightened my shoulders and took a deep breath, reminding myself of how far I had come. As I ascended the stage, the bright lights blinded me momentarily. Faces blurred into an indistinct sea of eyes, all fixated on me. I could feel the weight of anticipation pressing down, the thrill of exposure mingling with an almost paralyzing fear. Every step was deliberate, every movement calculated to maintain poise. I glanced down at the shimmering dress that clung to me, the carefully applied makeup, the heels that elevated my stance, and realized that I was no longer the person who had accepted the dare days ago. I was someone new, someone bold, someone unafraid to be seen. Then came the twist I hadn't anticipated. Madison, standing near the front row, called out my name with a sly grin. "Show us what you've got," she said, her voice carrying just enough authority to draw every eye to me. My pulse raced. Every student leaned in, waiting to see how I would respond. I felt my mind flash with fear, but also with exhilaration. This was the ultimate test, to fully inhabit the persona I had been developing all week, knowing that failure would mean humiliation, but success would cement my transformation. I took a deep breath and began to move gracefully across the stage, letting the confidence I had honed over the week guide every gesture. I felt the eyes of my peers on me, the subtle shifts of admiration and intrigue, and a strange sense of power coursed through me. For the first time, I realized that the dare had changed me, not just in appearance, but in identity. I was no longer hiding, no longer playing a role just for amusement. I was stepping fully into a version of myself that was bold, confident, and undeniably captivating. As the assembly ended, I descended from the stage, my legs trembling slightly from adrenaline and nerves. But even as I walked back to the safety of the hallway, the suspense wasn't over. Madison whispered one final remark, her tone both teasing and loaded with unspoken challenge. "You're not done yet, this is just the beginning." My heart skipped a beat. The dare had ended, but the consequences, the transformations, and the thrill of this new identity were far from over. I felt a mixture of fear, anticipation, and excitement, realizing that the week had changed me forever. And then, the ultimate cliffhanger. As I turned a corner, I saw someone standing there, someone whose reaction could unravel everything. Their eyes widened in surprise, and for a split second, I felt the weight of exposure and vulnerability crash down. My breath caught. The suspense hung thick in the air, unresolved, leaving me and the audience on the precipice of what would happen next. The final bell rang, signaling the end of an intense day, but the suspense was far from over. The hallway, once bustling, now felt strangely quiet, almost like the calm before a storm. I moved cautiously, aware that my every step could draw attention. The adrenaline from the assembly still coursed through my veins, my body buzzing with a mix of exhilaration and fear. I had navigated the dare, the stairs, the challenges, but one final obstacle remained, and it loomed unexpectedly before me. Turning a corner, I froze. There, standing in the hallway, was Emma. Her expression was unreadable, a mixture of surprise, curiosity, and something deeper that I couldn't quite place. My stomach dropped. I had been so focused on maintaining the persona, on surviving the dare, that I hadn't anticipated this confrontation. The moment stretched, tense and heavy, as our eyes locked. I could feel every emotion simmering beneath the surface: excitement, fear, shame, and a strange thrill that I couldn't quite control. I didn't expect to see you like this," Emma said softly, her voice betraying just a hint of uncertainty. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat. What could I say? How could I explain everything? The dare, the transformation, the thrill, the fear, without revealing too much or too little. I felt a wave of vulnerability wash over me, a reminder of how fragile this new identity still was. One wrong word, one sudden reaction, could undo everything I had built this week. As I searched for something to say, Emma took a step closer. Her gaze was intense, studying me with a mix of fascination and something that bordered on awe. You really committed, didn't you?" she whispered, almost more to herself than to me. I nodded, unsure if I was proud, embarrassed, or terrified. The mix of emotions was overwhelming, and I realized that this encounter would be pivotal, not just for the dare, but for my relationship with Emma and my journey of self-discovery. Before I could respond further, a sudden noise echoed from the other end of the hallway, a locker slamming shut, footsteps approaching fast. My heart leapt into my throat. Emma glanced in the same direction, her eyes widening. Someone was coming, someone who could see me like this, someone who could shatter the delicate balance I had maintained all week. Panic and excitement surged through me simultaneously. Every instinct screamed to flee, to hide, yet a part of me wanted to stay, to face the unknown with the boldness I had cultivated over these past days. And then, just as the footsteps drew nearer, Emma reached out, her hand brushing lightly against mine. "Whatever happens," she said softly, "I think you need to know you're incredible like this." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. For a moment, I felt a rush of validation, of affirmation, of something I had never experienced before. Yet the suspense remained, hanging thickly in the air, unresolved, as the approaching figure grew closer, their identities still unknown. The hallway seemed to hold its breath. I stood frozen, caught between the exhilaration of Emma's words and the terrifying uncertainty of what, or who, was coming. The shadow of the approaching figure stretched across the floor, and the suspense became almost unbearable. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. The week's journey, the dare, the transformation, the triumphs and near disasters, had all led to this moment. Then, the screen fades to black. The final image lingers in the mind of the audience. My wide eyes locked on the approaching figure, Emma's reassuring hand against mine, and the thrilling, terrifying uncertainty of what would happen next. The story ends unresolved, leaving viewers teetering on the edge of suspense, hearts racing, minds full of questions. What will happen when the figure reaches us? Will my secret be discovered? Will Emma's support be enough to protect the persona I've worked so hard to embrace? The answers are unknown, left for the next chapter of this thrilling, emotional journey. The weekend had arrived, but for me, the challenge of the dare was far from over. The thrill of the week had already transformed me, and I could feel the persona I had developed taking root in ways I hadn't expected. I stood in my room, surrounded by the clothes, shoes, and accessories that had become almost like extensions of myself. Each item carried its own significance: the silky dress that made me feel daring, the heels that changed the way I carried myself, the carefully chosen lipstick that added a spark of confidence I had never known. I spent hours experimenting with different combinations, not just to impress others, but because it had become an intimate journey of self-discovery. Every flick of eyeliner, every brush of blush, felt like uncovering a new layer of who I was becoming. It was intoxicating, an adrenaline-fueled mix of vulnerability and empowerment. But with every thrill came the ever-present shadow of fear. What if someone saw me like this? What if my classmates or Emma discovered the extent of my transformation before I was ready? To make matters more suspenseful, a teacher, Mr. Carlyle, known for his keen eye, walked past my classroom during a study session. For a fleeting moment, I imagined him noticing the subtle hints of my new persona, the way I sat, the slight shimmer of lipstick visible even from a distance. My pulse quickened at the thought. It was a reminder that while the dare had started as a playful challenge, it was now evolving into something much bigger. Each decision I made, each step I took, carried a potential risk that kept the adrenaline pumping. That afternoon, I received a text from Jessica, smirking through words on my phone. "Heard someone's been experimenting. Don't be shy to show us more." The message made my stomach twist, part excitement and part dread. The idea of being noticed, of being admired, thrilled me, but it also sparked anxiety. I realized that my peers were starting to recognize the persona I had created. The dare had begun to ripple outward, affecting not just my own perception but the way others saw me. I decided to push myself further. Standing before the mirror, I slipped into a particularly daring outfit, a flowing skirt paired with a fitted top that emphasized the curves I had learned to appreciate. My hair, usually messy from rushing around the school, was carefully styled, and my makeup had been perfected to the point where it almost felt like armor. As I practiced walking across the room in heels, the mirror reflected a confidence I had never experienced before. But beneath that confidence lingered a nervous energy. I knew that stepping outside in this persona meant exposure, scrutiny, and perhaps judgment, but the thrill of daring to be seen was irresistible. Later that evening, I ventured outside for a quick walk. The streets were quiet, the sunset casting long shadows, making the world feel intimate yet tense. Every passerby felt magnified in my perception, their glances imagined or real, assessing my every move. The thrill of almost being caught, of being observed without revealing my full secret, sent a shiver down my spine. It was as though the world itself had become a stage, and I was performing my new self, balancing between fear and exhilaration. Returning home, I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. The reflection staring back was no longer timid or hesitant. This was someone bold, someone willing to take risks, someone who had discovered a side of themselves that was both thrilling and frightening. Yet I knew the ultimate test was still ahead: the school, the peers, the dare itself. And I realized that the next encounter, the next challenge, could change everything. My heart pounded with anticipation, knowing that the suspense of being discovered was now an inseparable part of the thrill I had come to crave. The following day brought a new layer of tension and opportunity. Jessica had invited me to a small gathering at a classmate's house, ostensibly just a casual hangout, but I knew it was anything but ordinary. It was the perfect chance to test how far I could take my transformation, how comfortable I could be in my new persona, and, most importantly, how others would react. My heart raced as I thought about walking into a room full of peers while wearing an outfit that was undeniably bold. The stakes felt higher than ever. I spent the morning meticulously preparing. Every detail mattered: the dress, the shoes, the jewelry, even the way I styled my hair. Makeup was no longer just a routine. It had become a ritual, a process that built my confidence while heightening my nerves. I practiced my posture and gestures in front of the mirror, making sure every movement projected poise and subtle confidence. For the first time, I realized that cross-dressing wasn't just about appearance. It was a full embodiment of a persona that demanded careful navigation. The drive to the gathering was a mix of anticipation and dread. Each stoplight felt like an eternity, every passing glance from strangers in cars magnified by my heightened awareness. The streets blurred past as my mind raced through scenarios. What if someone recognized me? What if my disguise wasn't convincing enough? What if I tripped or drew unwanted attention? Yet beneath the anxiety, a rush of exhilaration pulsed through me. Every risk carried the possibility of triumph. Every glance could be an acknowledgement of my daring transformation. Arriving at the house, I paused at the door, heart hammering. The music thumped faintly through the walls, and the muffled laughter of classmates reached me, blending excitement with intimidation. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The room fell into a brief hush, as if my entrance had created a ripple of awareness among the crowd. I felt dozens of eyes on me, some curious, some admiring, others whispering in subtle shock. For a moment, panic flared. The dare, the persona, the boldness, all of it hung on the fragile perception of those around me. Jessica, ever mischievous, came forward with a teasing grin. "Wow," she said, "you really committed. I almost didn't recognize you." The compliment sent a shiver through me, a mix of validation and a reminder that I was fully exposed. The group of peers responded in waves. A few whispered excitedly, others exchanged glances, and some even complimented me outright. It was a roller coaster of emotions. The thrill of acceptance mingled with the fear of being overexposed, a tension that was almost addictive. As the evening progressed, subtle challenges began to arise. One classmate, Liam, leaned a little too close, curious about my transformation. His questions were casual, yet each one felt like a probe into my secret world. I answered with careful precision, masking nervousness with practiced poise. Every movement, every gesture, was a delicate balancing act between revealing enough to impress and concealing enough to protect my identity. The excitement of performing under scrutiny intensified with each passing moment. Then came the small, suspenseful incident that would define the night. Someone spotted a glimpse of a detail, my shoes, the way my wrists flexed, or the hint of makeup peeking under a strand of hair. There was a moment of silence as the recognition flickered in their eyes. My heart skipped, the tension thick and almost suffocating. Yet instead of ridicule, there was admiration, a subtle acknowledgement of my boldness. The near discovery was a thrill unlike anything I had experienced, proof that the line between exposure and acceptance was razor thin. By the end of the gathering, I felt transformed, not just in appearance but in confidence. I had navigated scrutiny, curiosity, and potential exposure with grace, and the thrill of it lingered. The night had reinforced a truth I was only beginning to accept. My persona was more than a dare. It had become a statement, a daring exploration of identity, and a test of courage. And while the dare itself might be ending soon, the implications of this week, this transformation, would linger far longer than I could have imagined. The tension had been building for days, and now it reached a fever pitch. After the school gathering, whispers and glances followed me everywhere I went. The daring persona I had embraced drawing both admiration and curiosity. Walking through the crowded hallway felt like navigating a minefield, every step measured, every gesture calculated. The adrenaline surged constantly, a mix of excitement and fear. One wrong move, one slip, and the carefully constructed image could unravel in an instant. The unexpected confrontation came during lunch. As I carried my tray into the cafeteria, I noticed a familiar figure standing near the tables, Liam, the classmate who had subtly tested me at the gathering. His eyes locked on me with a mixture of curiosity and intensity, and my stomach twisted. He started walking toward me, casual but deliberate. Panic and anticipation collided inside me. What did he know? What had he noticed? The thrill of being scrutinized while maintaining composure sent shivers down my spine. I sat down at a corner table, trying to appear nonchalant, but every movement felt amplified under Liam's gaze. He approached and leaned slightly closer, his tone casual but loaded with unspoken meaning. "You've really committed, huh? This whole thing." My mind raced for a response that would satisfy his curiosity without giving too much away. I nodded, forcing a smile, feeling my pulse hammer in my ears. The excitement of almost being exposed mingled with the fear of discovery. It was a rush unlike anything I had ever felt. Then disaster, or so it seemed, struck. One of the heels I had chosen for the day caught on the edge of the bench as I shifted my weight, a sharp tug, and a small stumble. The cafeteria fell silent for a brief moment, heads turning. Heat flushed my face, embarrassment threatening to break my composure. Yet, I managed to regain balance, a small laugh escaping me to mask the panic. The near mishap, instead of humiliating me, had heightened the suspense and the thrill. Every eye on me, every reaction a test of my ability to maintain the persona under pressure. The stakes escalated further when Jessica, ever the provocateur, slid into the seat across from me. Her grin was mischievous, almost daring.
"Careful there," she teased.
"One slip, and everyone will see just how committed you are." Her words, playful as they were, added another layer of intensity. I realized that this was no longer just about personal exploration. It had become a performance with an audience. Every movement, every glance, every carefully calculated gesture was scrutinized. The line between empowerment and exposure blurred, and I felt the weight of the suspense pressing down like a tangible force. By the time lunch ended, I had navigated the confrontation with Liam, the accidental stumble, and Jessica's teasing, emerging relatively unscathed, but the adrenaline lingered. The challenge was no longer external, it had become internal. My heart pounded as I walked through the halls, hyper-aware of every look, every whisper. The persona I had cultivated was thriving, but so was the tension. Each step forward was a reminder that the dare had escalated beyond playful fun. It was now a high-stakes test of composure, identity, and courage. As the day wore on, I found myself retreating to the bathroom, seeking a moment of privacy to regroup. The mirror reflected a familiar yet transformed face, the bold eyes, the poised posture, the carefully styled hair. But beneath that confident exterior, I could feel the nervous energy simmering. This persona, thrilling and empowering, was also fragile. Every encounter, every glance, every small accident could unravel it. Yet the tension was addictive. The closer I came to exposure, the more alive I felt, and I knew the climax of this week-long journey was drawing nearer with every heartbeat. The tension had been building for days, and now it reached a fever pitch. After the school gathering, whispers and glances followed me everywhere I went, the daring persona I had embraced drawing both admiration and curiosity. Walking through the crowded hallway felt like navigating a minefield, every step measured, every gesture calculated. The adrenaline surged constantly, a mix of excitement and fear. One wrong move, one slip, and the carefully constructed image could unravel in an instant. The unexpected confrontation came during lunch. As I carried my tray into the cafeteria, I noticed a familiar figure standing near the tables, Liam, the classmate who had subtly tested me at the gathering. His eyes locked on me with a mixture of curiosity and intensity, and my stomach twisted. He started walking toward me, casual but deliberate. Panic and anticipation collided inside me. What did he know? What had he noticed? The thrill of being scrutinized while maintaining composure sent shivers down my spine. I sat down at a corner table, trying to appear nonchalant, but every movement felt amplified under Liam's gaze. He approached and leaned slightly closer, his tone casual but loaded with unspoken meaning. "You've really committed, huh? This whole thing." My mind raced for a response that would satisfy his curiosity without giving too much away. I nodded, forcing a smile, feeling my pulse hammer in my ears. The excitement of almost being exposed mingled with the fear of discovery. It was a rush unlike anything I had ever felt. Then disaster, or so it seemed, struck. One of the heels I had chosen for the day caught on the edge of the bench as I shifted my weight, a sharp tug, and a small stumble. The cafeteria fell silent for a brief moment, heads turning. Heat flushed my face, embarrassment threatening to break my composure. Yet, I managed to regain balance, a small laugh escaping me to mask the panic. The near mishap, instead of humiliating me, had heightened the suspense and the thrill, every eye on me, every reaction a test of my ability to maintain the persona under pressure. The stakes escalated further when Jessica, ever the provocateur, slid into the seat across from me. Her grin was mischievous, almost daring.
Careful there, she teased.
One slip, and everyone will see just how committed you are. Her words, playful as they were, added another layer of intensity. I realized that this was no longer just about personal exploration. It had become a performance with an audience. Every movement, every glance, every carefully calculated gesture was scrutinized. The line between empowerment and exposure blurred, and I felt the weight of the suspense pressing down like a tangible force. By the time lunch ended, I had navigated the confrontation with Liam, the accidental stumble, and Jessica's teasing, emerging relatively unscathed, but the adrenaline lingered. The challenge was no longer external, it had become internal. My heart pounded as I walked through the halls, hyper-aware of every look, every whisper. The persona I had cultivated was thriving, but so was the tension. Each step forward was a reminder that the dare had escalated beyond playful fun. It was now a high-stakes test of composure, identity, and courage. As the day wore on, I found myself retreating to the bathroom, seeking a moment of privacy to regroup. The mirror reflected a familiar yet transformed face, the bold eyes, the poised posture, the carefully styled hair. But beneath that confident exterior, I could feel the nervous energy simmering. This persona, thrilling and empowering, was also fragile. Every encounter, every glance, every small accident could unravel it. Yet the tension was addictive. The closer I came to exposure, the more alive I felt, and I knew the climax of this week-long journey was drawing nearer with every heartbeat. The final bell had rung, but the tension from the day refused to dissipate. I walked through the empty halls, the echo of my heels sounding unnervingly loud against the polished floors. Every step felt like a drumbeat in a suspenseful story, a reminder that the dare, the transformation, and the secrets I had carefully guarded were still dangerously alive. Emma's eyes, Jessica's whispers, and the reactions of the other students played in my mind like a looping reel of adrenaline. I slipped into the bathroom, hoping for a moment of privacy to process everything. The mirror reflected a mixture of triumph and vulnerability. The persona I had built, the daring, confident version of myself, was still intact, yet beneath it, my nerves hummed with fear. What if someone finally realized the truth? What if Emma's curiosity turned into scrutiny? The anticipation of potential discovery was almost intoxicating, every heartbeat resonating with suspense. As I adjusted my hair and smoothed the folds of my dress, a sudden knock on the bathroom door froze me in place. The sound was deliberate, slow, and unmistakably familiar. My heart leapt. Who could it be? My mind raced through every possible scenario, each more suspenseful than the last. I clutched the edge of the sink, every nerve alert. Then, a familiar voice whispered through the slightly ajar door, Emma's. "I know," she said softly, a hint of a smile in her tone. The words were simple, but the weight behind them was staggering. My pulse raced, a mixture of fear, excitement, and disbelief flooding through me. She had noticed. She had seen through my persona, through the dare, through the carefully constructed facade. And yet, there was no accusation, only a tantalizing mix of curiosity and intrigue. Before I could respond, the door creaked wider, and a shadow fell across the bathroom floor. Jessica's mischievous grin appeared just beyond the threshold. "Looks like the fun isn't over," she teased, her tone dripping with playful menace. My mind whirled, caught between the thrill of being discovered and the terror of exposure. Every instinct screamed caution, but another part of me craved the daring continuation, the suspenseful escalation that had defined the week. The three of us stood there in tense silence, the air thick with anticipation. Emma's gaze held me in a way that made my knees weak, while Jessica's playful challenge radiated energy and audacity. I realized in that moment that the week-long dare, the persona I had cultivated, and the emotional highs and lows were far from over. The real test was now, not just of appearance, but of courage, identity, and the boundaries of trust. As the tension reached its peak, a sudden, unexpected sound echoed from the hallway, a janitor pushing a cart, his footsteps drawing closer. Time seemed to slow. Every second stretched into a suspenseful eternity. Emma's eyes met mine, a spark of mischief and challenge lighting her expression. Jessica nudged slightly, as if daring me to make a move. The door remained slightly ajar, the outside world waiting to intrude on our secret, and the next moment would define everything. I took a hesitant step forward, unsure whether to embrace the exposure or retreat into safety. The adrenaline coursed through me, a blend of fear, excitement, and exhilaration. And just as the janitor's footsteps grew nearer, Emma whispered again, "Do you trust me?" My breath caught, my heart raced, and the suspense became almost unbearable. The next decision, whether to reveal, hide, or take a daring leap, hung in the air unresolved, leaving the story at its most intense point yet. The screen of imagination fades to black, leaving viewers with racing hearts, wide eyes, and countless questions. Will the secret be exposed? Will the persona survive? How will Emma and Jessica respond next? The cliffhanger lingers, impossible to ignore, urging speculation, conversation, and anticipation for what comes next in this suspenseful journey of transformation, courage, and daring exploration.